In the precise world of geometry, the locus rule teaches us that a point moves in a path determined by a fixed rule, and that path creates meaning, pattern, and clarity. But in the complex world of human life, the same principle holds true, though few realize it. We are all moving points on the canvas of time, and whether we move with a clear rule or wander aimlessly determines the shape and substance of our lives. And if anyone in American history embodied the spirit of the locus rule, it was Harriet Tubman, a woman born into the darkness of slavery, but who carried within her a blazing internal compass that never wavered, whose every movement was guided, not by chance or fear, but by a relentless commitment to one unbreakable rule. Freedom, not just for me, but for everyone I can reach. This was her locus, her path, her defining principle, and no matter how treacherous the terrain, how impossible the odds, or how heavy the burden, she never strayed from it, even when death was only a breath away, even when the entire system was designed to stop her, even when her own body broke under the weight of oppression. She followed her rule, step by step, action by action, and in doing so, she traced a path through American history that still burns bright today. Born Araminta Ross in Maryland in the early 1820s, she was subjected to brutal labor, abuse, and hardship from a young age, and after a violent head injury caused her lifelong seizures and visions. She could have used that as a reason to give up, to stay broken, to retreat inward. But instead, it deepened her spiritual resolve, giving her a belief that she was being guided by a higher power, a rule beyond reason or fear, and that her path, painful though it was, had purpose. And when she finally escaped slavery in 1849, crossing into free territory in Pennsylvania, she could have stopped there, could have lived her life in peace, but that would have violated her rule, her internal geometry, because her path was never about herself alone. It was about liberation, and so she returned again and again and again, risking capture, risking death, risking everything to lead others to freedom along what became known as the Underground Railroad. And she didn't do it for fame. She didn't do it for reward. She did it because her locus was fixed. Every step was measured, every decision mapped by a simple yet profound truth: that no human should live in chains, and that she had been called to act. And this rule, this compass, gave her the kind of courage most can't comprehend. Walking through forests by night, sleeping in swamps, navigating by the stars, knowing that at any moment slave catchers with dogs and guns might find her. She never flinched, because the path she walked was not drawn by safety. It was drawn by truth, and truth has power. And that's the lesson the locus rule gives us, that when you define your rule, when you commit to a principle so deeply it becomes the force that moves you, you become unstoppable, not because the road gets easier, but because your direction becomes clear. Harriet's life wasn't just a story of escape. It was a story of returning. Over 13 missions, she freed around 70 enslaved people directly, and guided hundreds more through her intelligence networks, always moving, always plotting, always listening to her inner guidance. And even when people doubted her, even when some she tried to help turned back, she never lost her way, never changed her rule, because her identity was anchored. And when your identity is anchored, your path has integrity. And later, during the Civil War, she worked for the Union Army as a scout, a nurse, and a spy, becoming the first woman to lead an armed expedition in the war when she guided the Combahee River Raid, which freed over 700 slaves in a single night. Again, not because she sought glory, but because the rule within her never changed, because she knew that the purpose of her life was to move forward, to pull others with her, and to never retreat into safety when the work of freedom still remained undone. And even in her later years, when the war was over and the country had moved on, she kept fighting, speaking for women's suffrage, founding a home for the aged, still giving, still guiding, still moving by the same rule. She was small in stature, barely 5 feet, unable to read or write, often ill, often poor, but the strength of her path, the consistency of her purpose, made her more powerful than entire armies. And today, most of us will never face the horrors she did. We'll never be hunted like animals for simply helping others, but we will face doubt, fear, distraction, and the endless temptation to drift, to forget our rule, to abandon our path for comfort or convenience or approval. But Harriet Tubman's life reminds us, when you choose your rule and commit to it with your whole being, your life takes on a shape that is undeniable, a direction that can cut through any chaos. And whether your rule is about justice, kindness, excellence, or growth, what matters most is that you choose it and live by it daily. Not when it's easy, but especially when it's hard, because that's when the path you're drawing matters most.